an elephant on the screen. Do you have any concept of what an elephant is?
I know you eat one bite at a time, but I don't. Actually, I kind of do, because I had little toys that were obviously small versions of an elephant, but then I went to a circus at one point through the Braille Institute, and we actually got to pet an elephant.
Really?
And so that was kind of cool.
That would be. All right, so you just totally ruined my sermon here. But
Hey, you know what? That's what happens when you don't bring the questions before the person, before you ask.
Yeah, but see, I know you well enough that if I had said, do you know what an elephant is? And you said no, the first thing you would have done was say, hey Siri, what's an elephant? And then it would have described an African elephant, and I want to talk about an Indian elephant, so then it would have been 20% larger, and that would have just ruined everything.
Yeah, well.
Okay, well, I thought it would be kind of fun to actually bring in an elephant, and I actually checked into this. Oh. So it turns out that it's $18,000 to start the conversation with an organization down out of LA. Where else would you find an elephant? And then you would have to pay for all the transportation costs, the people that were involved, all the hotels and stuff. I'm assuming that the elephant didn't stay in the hotel room. But I'm sure that would have been a lot more expensive. But I figured Eric Moyerman, our CFO, would probably balk at this idea. Now, would it have been the craziest idea you've heard since you've been here?
You could just put a big dog in an elephant costume.
Yeah.
You know, I'm blind. I'm not stupid.
It would have been fun, but I couldn't figure out how to get it through the doors. You got the metal barrier in between, it just wouldn't have worked. And Dan probably would have thrown a fit if I had actually managed to get it in the door and said, all right, who's doing the carpet cleaning now? Come on. We don't even allow drinks in here. Now I've got this elephant dumping out here. All right, let's see. Is this ever going to work? This isn't going to work. All right, Kevin, just advance the slide for me. Okay, yeah, there we go. So here's Mom and Dad. They were, this is actually circa probably 1993, so Dad would have been, 53, I guess, at that point. They decided to become part of the Peace Corps back in the early 60s, and they decided to go to India. So being in India for a time, of course, I ended up growing up with stories about India. And of course, the most famous one was not about eating the elephant. All the vegans and the vegetarians are really happy, right? And we're not going to be talking about that here. It was about the blind men and the elephant. Now, how many people have heard that story? All right, so I've only got about a little less than half, actually. So that's perfect. So, good. It'll be a new story then for most of you. So, so as the story goes, and I didn't realize initially that it was a political scenario. And I assumed that it was Hindu, but actually it has Buddhist origins, although the Hindus like it, and the Jains like it, and the Sufis like it. So there's plenty of variations of this story that happen. But the context was actually political. There was a local ruler, and he had his wise men who were discussing various subjects, and he just wanted some good advice. I mean, that's all he really wanted, so that he could make a decision and rule accordingly. But they were arguing. They were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, each really stuck in their particular position and not bending at all in their perspectives of things. So he decided to create an object lesson, and he yelled to his servants, and he called and said, bring in an elephant into this room, and go find 5 blind men and bring him into the room. Now, being a political context, they went out and quickly found a communist and a socialist and a Democrat and a Republican and no, okay. No, those parties didn't exist back then. This was, 2,500 years ago when this originally happened. So, all right. Boy, and I didn't mention this earlier. I was supposed to mention this part. So most of you know that my profession has primarily been in technology. I do a lot of healing work too, but it's been in technology. So, been a Microsoft certified trainer. And I got to say, my favorite command on the computer is Control-Z, which is undo. Command-Z on a Mac, but undo. So I'm going to say Control-Z on the whole political part of the story here. So he found completely nonpartisan blind people and brought them in, and he said, okay, explain the elephant to me. And one went up to the leg and started reaching around it. Now, the leg is about 45 centimeters or 18 inches in size, and it started feeling this leg, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's a tree. It's like a tree. That's what this is. It's like a tree. All right, fine. Next blind man goes up and starts feeling the side of the elephant. Well, this is pretty broad, and he can't reach up high enough to get to the top of it, and he's kind of going along the side and still feeling it, and he's like, it's a wall. It feels like a wall. What are you talking about it being a tree? There's nothing here. It's a wall. The next blind man goes up and grabs the tail. So it's about 1.2 meters or 4 feet in length, and he's feeling the thing, and it's like, what are you talking about? It's like a rope. How do you get a wall or a tree out of a rope? This makes no sense whatsoever. You guys are wrong. You're idiots. And so then you get to the next guy. He goes over and he grabs the trunk. Oh, you've got a question now, Eric?
No, I just have a comment. You picked some really dumb blind people.
He picked some dumb blind people. So then the next one's grabbing the trunk. The trunk is about 1.8 meters or 6 feet in length, and he's feeling this thing, and it's kind of twisting around and moving, and he's feeling it, and it turns out there's 150,000 muscles actually in a trunk. Who would have known? But he's like, this feels like a snake, a python or something, just a really big one. What are you guys talking about? You're idiots. None of this is making any sense. And then the last one goes up and he grabs the tusk, which is about 1.6 meters or about 5'6" in length. And he's feeling how sturdy and solid this thing is. And he says, this is like a big spear. This makes no sense. Why are you doing this? You guys are all idiots. Come on. They were each looking at things from their own perspectives, right? Not being able to see the whole of what was going on. And that was the moral that my mother was trying to get across, was talking about that. Oh, you advanced ahead. Okay. You're not supposed to be there yet. Back up. So I'm hearing this story about, I think it was probably about 8 years old when I first remembered. I mean, I'm sure my mother told me this plenty of times, but, there's some point where a kid finally it sinks in and you actually remember it. So I think it was probably about 8 years old when we got there. Fast forward a number of years, my senior year of high school, my parents decided to join Youth with a Mission, which was a interdenominational Christian missionary organization. So, grew up just on the outskirts of Salem, Oregon, and all of a sudden we're flying to Hawaii, Kailua Kona, to their international headquarters, and they start going through their Crossroads Discipleship Training School. And my eyes were really kind of opening up. I'd kind of grown up in this Free Methodist church, which was really conservative, and hadn't really seen a lot of other religions, and all of a sudden we're with an interdenominational organization, so we had just about everybody there. And so the perspectives became very fascinating to me to realize, oh, you guys do it this way? Oh, you believe in this? Hadn't seen these things, hadn't experienced it. And so I found it fascinating learning from everybody as we were going. Well, then my parents had the outreach ministry portion of their program, and so we flew off to, I had a brief layover in Japan, and then went to Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, all during my senior year of high school. So that really opened up my eyes to the world at that point. I'm looking at all these different cultures, all these different people, and realizing we're all the same. We all want to have connections. We all want to have family. We want to have a nice home. We want to be able to eat. Now, the food they eat is a lot different, and boy, some of it's really, really good. Other things seem a little strange, but mostly I really enjoyed the food. You know, the house structures were different, but there was all these similarities, and that's what I kept picking up on, where that people ultimately are really people all across this planet. Fast forward again, I went to Seattle Pacific University and studied sociology and cultural anthropology, and then I minored in cross-cultural missions because I was interested in going back out onto the mission field. And a lot of my interest actually was in church planting. I wanted to think about how do you actually grow an organization? How do you set up new churches in different locations? This was all part of my thinking as I was going through it. But of course, I needed to study a lot of different religions. So I kept studying Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism. And as I kept studying the different things, of course, at that time in my life, I was like, I want to prove them all wrong. You know, I've got the right answer here, you know. Let's figure out what's wrong. But the more I studied, the more I realized they've actually got some really good points. All of these different religions had some really good points. And at some point, I finally realized that, oh crap, I'm like one of the blind men. Okay, now you can put up the next slide. And I realized that the religions of the world were like the blind men, trying to explain the infinite we call God. Now I've got here on the tail, now this is it's more of a Taoist, more of a religious Taoist. Now I know, Jim, you're probably more the philosophical type, right? And probably Nico too. But I needed to think of something, and actually that was the only part of the elephant that actually made sense as far as a religion to me. Because with the Tao, it's all about just going with the movement, the flow, right? Yeah, and the tail just kind of follows behind. So that was the only one part that actually made a whole lot of sense to me. But I've got a Jewish priest there. I've got a Catholic. I don't know, maybe we can dim the lights so people can see this a little better. Is that possible to kill it? It's just a little hard here. Does that help? That look a little better? Okay. And then I got a Muslim holding the trunk. Oh, sorry, I had a Christian priest here, Catholic priest holding the leg. And then I had the Hindu going ahead and holding the tusk at this point. So actually, it would have been a little fun if I could have actually got Gemini, because obviously this is AI generated, to swap positions around. I kept trying to get them to swap, and it just was not working. It was driving me nuts. And I just figured that the Hindus were used to having snakes around, you know. You see them, you know, going with the little pipes and stuff, and that would have been kind of fun. But it is what it is. Here's the different ideas of the different religions all trying to explain the infinite. How do you explain the infinite? Well, got to give it names, right? All right, next slide. So these are some of the different names of God that I found. And I started listing them all, and I'm not going to read every one of them here. It's too long a list. But I did want to point out when I got down to the metaphysics part here that just because Dave's here, I had to put Gus up here. So God, universe, spirit. That's a Dave Finchism, so I had to add Gus on there. Can't remember, okay. Here, I thought you made it up. I was giving you complete credit for it, and you just took it away.
We were there when
One of the speakers did it.
Yep.
Ah, that's what it was. Does any of the names up here surprise you?
Eric.
How did you know Eric was listed there? The one that surprised me was Ahura Mazda. I'd never heard that name before for a god. But there was one thought that came to mind. Can you forward the next slide? Maybe. Any Trekkies out here? Got a few Trekkies? Okay. So Lieutenant Uhura driving a Mazda, that was the only thing that I could think of. All right, let's go on to the next one. So I wanted to know, I'm kind of pivoting here a little bit. Some of the different names of God causes problems for people. Even if I said church, I know Robin's going to complain. There's a lot of religious terms that we've had growing up in our lives. And a lot of us are triggered by some of these different words. Reverend Kelly talked about this in his sermon back a number of months ago. And I was really looking forward to him being here today, and unfortunately he wasn't able to make it because I actually wanted to kind of continue a little bit with his sermon. And part of it is I want you to scan this if you can. And I want to put up different words that trigger you. So it could be church, sin, God. Pick a word. We're going to do a word cloud and put it up on the screen. Maybe I'll get out of the way so I don't block the screen so you can actually get that QR code. And if you're online, this works too, so please go ahead and do it as well. When I see the cameras go down, then I'll go ahead and see if we can start pulling up that word cloud, Kevin. Let's see. I see a few more people with cell phones. Anybody else want to try? Yeah, go ahead and pull it up. I think we got enough people. There we go. So we got church, Jesus, God, sinner, Christ, sin, Lord, hell, confession, Heavenly Father, the devil. And it keeps switching around. There should be a piece of paper in the chairs, a white piece of paper. And if you don't see one, or maybe we need one in the front row here, I want you to take a pen and write down some of these words. The ones that bug you. It's been obvious to me as I've been spending the last, 7, 8 years here, that there's just a lot of wounds. You know, most of us have come out of different religions and have come here to unity. Now we're looking for that unifying message, but we still have our wounds. So take a few minutes, just write things down. Does anybody need some paper? How many people remember what Reverend Kelly said he wanted to do with all those words that were triggering people? Eric?
If I remember right, how to release them.
True. There was one other word that I'm looking for as part of that release process. Tiff? Was it accept? No. Go ahead. Burn. There's the word I wanted. Burn.
I was going to say that. I thought I was joking.
So for time's sake, I'm going to wait on the burning ceremony aspect, but we will actually have a fire outside afterwards. So that's why you need the paper, because it's a little easier to burn. Now, I hope nobody wrote it on their hand. All right. Let's see. Didn't I have one last slide?
Yeah. Can you pull this down?
Yeah. Yeah, go for the last one. So it dawned on me that actually the truth may be closer to this. We're all the same. We're all part of the larger one. So I've got all these little baby elephants there wearing the same religious clothing as in the previous slide. But that's a topic for another day. Thank you very much.